Okay, what we're going to do is, since we can't make the eyes light up because the plastic's too thick, what I'm going to try and do is make the eyes glow using a black light. So, I found some red paint, which when I went to shake it, created a little bit of a mess. Like there. Because I didn't make sure the cap was fully tightened. But it has a reaction with UV light. Here's UV light. There's the red paint. Let's get the main lights turned off. You can see it's all dull, especially where the eyes are, right there. The white in between the eyes where it's glued is very reactive. And when I cross it over the paint, look at that. So, paint is just Tester's number red. Tester's red, number 1103. And what I'm probably going to try and do is, besides make a complete and utter mess, hey, that's an even easier way to make a mess. Alright. Well, now all future videos will have a fake blood stain. Mondays. On a Wednesday. Anyhow, I took a cheap watercolors paintbrush and trimmed the bristles really short so they're short and brittle. And I'm going to take some out of here, because when I shook it, of course, I got some in here. I am not the best painter. I usually send my stuff out, but I am going to try. And I'm just going to go over the red around the pupils. Because Lemax has those little lights that run on 4.5 volts that are UV, the little black lights, and they work very well. You can actually use them to detect scorpions if you want. They're not the same as a scorpion light, but they do work pretty good. They're actually really bright, and they have the right UV range to pick up a lot of stuff. Spooky Villages, another YouTube channel, which if you're into this stuff, you should probably go watch and subscribe. He talks about this house that doesn't have a lot of lighting. I think the lighting myself is probably fine, but I do think it should have more access lighting, or accent lighting. Now we're getting a little bit of a reaction. If you can see it yet, so I'll turn that off. And I can kind of see it. It's a little far down, but the eyes now have a reflective red. I was going to use phosphorescent paint, which is kind of an orangish color. I don't have any phosphorescent red lying around, or phosphorescent pink, but since I found this red from Testers was pretty close to the exact same shade as the eyes, I figured I'd try that. What I'm going to do is without ruining the whites of the eyes, I'm going to try and just get a little bit on the vein. Should probably get a toothpick for this. Let's see, do I have anything? I won't believe what I'm using to trace the bloodshot lines. I'm actually using the end of a match, paper match, because I didn't want to get up and leave and waste time to go find toothpicks. This is actually working pretty decently. Anyhow, what I'll probably end up doing is, I've done it in my display, is just fix, instead of those black lights, either on the top of the display pointing down or on the bottom of the display pointing up, to shine on the facade, so that way the red glows. Of course, I'm not tracing it perfectly. I'm not an expert painter. Honestly, this is the first house I've ever modified the paint on. I've changed lighting on houses when they've broken and I've had to replace the LEDs. I'll change them to a different shade or a different type, but I've never modified the paint, which some people do. And there's actually a house that I saw on one of the forums by a forum member named Alyssa Davis. She did a really good job on this one. One of the reasons that put me off in buying this house was it was a little too plastic toy-ish, which even Spooky Villages mentions in their video about this house. And they did a very nice weathering job to make the house look old and spooky. And when I looked at this house when it first came out with my painter friend, he said we should weather the house. And after seeing somebody else do it, I'm probably going to do it as well. So, let's get the chair out of the way and plug in the LED. Turn the lights off. Let's see if I can zoom in. First I'm going to do is take my glove off so I don't get the red paint on the camera. That would be bad. That's not bad. So, when this is all lit up with its factory lighting, you won't have this big white spot, which is where they did not paint the plastic. If you know anything about UV, it reflects really good on things that are not painted. Like there's a little bit of white where the paint on these gears was not the greatest. You can see it shining through. And it reacts with certain types of pigment and paints. But it doesn't look bad in person. Try not to touch the light eye itself because it's still wet. But instead of making the eyes light up, I'll make them glow using a simple UV light. Yeah, I got paint on my my overhead lamp. The chair again. So Gloves don't work the greatest either. Actually, this was when I first got the paint out, but that's fine. Get that off. Get some paint thinner on that. Try and use it for a few other small things. That's got to dry because that's actually a wet paint setup versus a dry paint or dry brushing technique. Dry brushing would leave too many streaks and it would be harder to do. But if you want to do this, the color I used again is Gloss Enamel number 1103 red. Of course, you would have read it easier before my finger put red paint on it. I used to build models and I still have some paints left over. So that's what we're going to do for the eyes. And the rest I'm going to do some weathering on the building. Make it look less toyish and more spooky townish. Most spooky town buildings that are brick or stone, they're not this bright red with a bluish, greenish blue siding. The stones would be weathered, smeared, gray, black tones basically. And this would probably be really weathered. It would either be like a steel girder, that would be a silverish color, maybe rusty and black and grimy. So let's see what I'm going to do with this. Now the first thing I noticed when I saw this is I didn't mind the cobblestone around the edges. I actually kind of liked it. But it's really hard to see because there's no contrast. So take some wet paint, stick it in here, rub it off. It'll give the stone a worn appearance and fill in the spots in between for where the grout would be and all the grime. So probably going to end up doing that too. I am going to not remove these guys. They're just glued on. You can see there's a little bead of glue, probably with the hard resin glue, and they're pretty stout. I'm also not going to remove the trash can, so what I'm trying to do is just be really careful around it. So I'm going to let that dry and come back and start doing the rest. Okay, back with a basic setup. I have a cup of water, the bottom of a cup, it's just a paper cup. I have air dry permanenamel black paint, ultra black. A paintbrush, the base. I got a paper towel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a sloppy wet paint to get in and wipe it off with the paper towel. There's plenty of techniques of this online. You can Google or YouTube, especially for those who cosplay. That's probably more than I need. Use a oversized popsicle stick. It says it's a quart paint stick on the package, but tongue depressor, wooden dowel, use whatever you want. You use a paintbrush, but it usually splays out the bristles, and then you have paint going where you don't want it to go. Look, it's a different videos project that falls off the shelf. So, paintbrush, cover it in your watered down paint, and just go to town. I'm not too worried about the glue with the brown in it. That's the wood board that was attached there. The wood board will be on top. If you're doing this on a table or something, you probably want to put down some plastic or newspaper. I am using a workbench. It's going to get dirty. So, just leaves me little reminders of the things that I've already done. You're going to pull up a lot of the black pigment back. You just got to keep moving your towel around to cleaner sections. Shop towels, the blue shop towels generally work better than these white paper towels for doing this because they don't shred as fast. Let's get this. But I'm using what I have in front of me. Now, if you think you took too much off, you can do it again. If you think you didn't add enough, same thing. And if you think it's too dark, you can dip it in water and get some more off. You'll never get it all off, but you can lighten it. But I don't know if you can tell already, it has a lot more definition and character. Even the edge, where it's just smeared from the water running down it, has more definition and character, giving it that old, used cobblestone look. Because you don't see too many clean cobblestone areas. It's always got that dark, dirty appearance. So, it's a little darker there on the wood, which again, when I glue that board on, you're not going to see it. And it does emphasize the glue. I don't know if you can see the ring, the glue puddle they had. Trash can, I might do the same thing to it. Put a little paint on it and wipe it off. I might do a dryer. Instead of such a wet, sloppy paint, I might dry it out and go more of a dry brush technique. am somewhat happy with it. I'm going to darken this up a little more. That side, to me, you can see it darker and lighter because I started wiping the wet side first instead of the side that was drying. There. I don't know how if there's a difference in the camera. Just change the lighting. There you go. Now it's not as intense. It's a more even color. Still a little dark, like I said, right here. It's fine. Once that wood's glued on, you're not going to notice the darkness stain. Just going to touch up the front edge that you can see. There we go. So now the edges are weathered, so the base looks a little better. This platform with the, you got a nut, a bolt, this threaded shaft, and looks like pieces of rebar to me. Since the brush has slowly been drying out, I'm just going to, it's basically almost like a dry technique. I'm just going to darken it a little. Same thing, I'm going to try and wipe off any excess. I'm not going to push really hard, just enough to make this blend in. Again, brush is still drying, and now I'm going to dirty up this trash can. Wipe it off. That way the black paint sticks into all the pores, the grooves. And now the trash can looks dirty and grimy and blends into cobblestone. So this technique where you wipe it off is pretty much dry immediately. If you have really deep grooves, you have to let it sit for a while. So now we have stuff like that and that. And the face if you want to change it. And the gears. To me, the building looks like it'd be a stone building with steel girders, steel supports. versus wood. So to me, all the stuff that's this blue-green would, to me, be a steel plate. So might do a silver and then put the black on it to distress it, make it look worn. Maybe add some amber burnt tones to imitate rust. Because it's dilapidated, so everything's boarded up. So nobody's taking care of the steel. It's gonna start to patina. As far as the bricks go, doing the same thing. Splashing them with the black. Try this small piece right here just to see what it does. I don't want it super wet. I'll dry out the sponge. Excuse me, dry out on the towel. Don't have a sponge. You can do a lot of this when it's still assembled. You don't have to tear the house apart like I did. Didn't tear the house apart to do this. I tore the house apart to see about modifying the insides and making it have more light than it already did. Just going to add some of the black from the towel onto the blue just to see what appearance it gives. But as you can see, let's get bright light on again. The bricks look more realistic. Red bricks, when they're first laid are red, after years the grout gets dirty, the bricks get dirty, they get darker, they stain from rain. And even comparing the blue-green, it might be hard to see with the camera. Let's try and change some of the color tones here. It helps a little. You can see it now has that distressed look, and that one doesn't. So, probably going to do the paintbrush on all of the brick. Front, sides, top, back. Especially the back. That's a big old section of brick. When I moved everything, I stuck it all on top of that, which of course is still sticky. So, let's get this out of the way. Let's put it up here where I'm not going to put stuff on it again. I mean, this one, you can see the brick pattern is still there. But on that one, these for the eyeball face, it's all smooth, and then they have brick edges here. Also, if I change this, if this was wood, it would probably not be purple. Also, it wouldn't be that brilliant of a purple if it was a dilapidated factory. So I think I'm going to try is first off, take a small piece like this and test this with a silver, or maybe test here, make it a silverish. And they try to do some basic distressing with their paint job around this window. It's not the greatest. Also, they didn't do the bottom very well. They just like touched it and said, "We're done." So you saw what I've been doing. So we're gonna just test out some different painting techniques. I'm going to do some practice on this. This being the base of the building, which goes right here. This is going to get the same dry brush technique. If it's too smooth, which this brush isn't that dry, so it's kind of a damp brush, I guess you might say. me, it looks more realistic, more fake. This is concrete imitation asphalt, or that would be concrete base on top of the cobblestone. Fresh concrete will look pretty, but the toy factory probably wouldn't be worn down or run down as it is, and boarded up. It was still brand new. So we're just trying to make it look like, or give it a better appearance of realism, like they do with their other houses, since their other houses are, well, have better paint jobs. This being plastic, though, allows you some benefits that the other houses maybe not give you, such as doing this type of painting where you can weather the pieces. Sometimes the resin or the ceramic has a coating that, even though you apply the paint, it doesn't stick very well, and then it rubs off. The plastic being more porous, you're less likely. If you're afraid the plastic's too smooth, you can use a Scotch-Brite pad or a mild grit sanding block. Get these things at the hardware store. Even one of those greenie sponges that has the abrasive on one side and the sponge on the other. Let's get some light back in here. There we go. So anyhow, I'm going to start working on this, and we'll be back when we get to the next step, since you're probably not going to want to watch me paint all this brick with the black paint and then rub it off with a paper towel. It's going to take forever. Then we'll go on to the next technique. Like I said, I'll probably test the metal appearance on one of these beams. That way, if it looks horrible, I can clean it off. And of course, because this is a front face, you'd want to do the inside as well. So, but anyhow, shall return once we get some of this done. All right, back. Did some touch up on all the different walls with the black paint and wiping it off. As soon as I started painting this one, the little window broke off. It's just held on with a little dab of glue right here and right here. So it wasn't on very well, and as soon as I went to go wipe the roof off, when I put some black paint on it, it just popped off. And so you can see the clean spot, just to get a reference of what it used to look like to what it looks like now with the coloring. I darkened this up and took care of the bottom while it was off. Putting it on is going to be easy. One, the outline, but there's a ledge right here that this actually rests up against, and then they just glued it on. So that part will be pretty simple to put back together when we're done with some super glue. Here's the back wall. I think it came out pretty good. It's got smeared discoloration. Makes it look more natural. Not sure what I'm going to do with the metal part, the quote-unquote metal parts. And this is the original blue. And here's silver, smeared on relatively dry using testers number 1146 silver. And then I added, once it was dry, using a towel to smear it so it would dry faster and allow some of the blue to shine through. I then took the black and smeared it on to give it that patinaed, aged look, so it kind of blends in with the bricks. One last thing I did, it's not much, but I figured I'd try it. I don't know if you can see it, but the in between all the green slats is a yellowish tinge to try and imitate like fresh rust. Might darken it up a little bit more, just to see what I can do. But I was testing out some watercolor yellow. That's all it says. The rest of it's all in foreign language. It's Where Reeves, My Reeves. So it might be hard to see with the white light on. So I was testing out some watercolors to see what it would look like on the plastic. I'm not a huge fan of it, but we'll see if I add another layer and smear it. If not, I'll go back to acrylic paint. But I figured I'd try some watercolor since I got some. So, show you how I did the patinaing of this, if you like it and you want to try it yourself. First we take the silver paint, brush, a little bit on there, wipe off most of it so it's not as wet, and then just paint it on. Restir the black, starting to evaporate a little bit. So, now, if you know anything about this paint, testers, it's supposed to let it dry for a while. I don't know if it even says it on here, how long. No. But I'm going to dry it by smearing it, which gives it streaks and allows some of the original paint to come through. You might notice I got some on the brick, which isn't a big deal. And then I'm going to take this brush. It's not 100% wet. I'm also going to go back over the silver paint I got on that. Kind of blend in that silver, that over smear, and then the watercolor type paint reacts with the tester's paint, at least it does for me, and it gets gummy until you wipe it several times, and then it gives a very interesting pattern. So the pattern, I'm going to try and give it some shadow from the big light. So it gives it a streaky pattern. Of course, I'm using a paper towel to help streak it, but it's not even, so it looks more natural. You may or may not be a fan of it. I'm thinking that it looks pretty decent, and then once it's together, it might look really good, or it might look like complete and utter crap. Parts in the eye of the beholder, and I am not a professional at this. This is not what I do. I know the techniques. I'm not an expert. I know enough to screw things up, which is why on my big projects that I always send it out for paint. But I figure this is small enough, and I already took it apart. I might as well attempt the different techniques to make the house look older and more dilapidated by using the ton of paints I have lying around. So I did smear the dry brush technique with a semi-wet brush on here and then rubbed it in. Not a big happy way that came out. I might do it again. The piping I was going to do in a darker color, but it actually doesn't look too bad with the semi-dry brush technique. You can see that this is the original, which is just gray, and then this with the random patches of dark gives it the dimension of it's been outside for a while. And if I get a good mixture of an amber red, I might put some streaks from the fittings down the wall as if it's rusting like a real house. If I can't mix up a good mixture, then I'm not going to bother. I tried mixing up some here. That's what I used up here. This is just the top half of that cup. Happy New Year. From 2000. So back when, it wasn't 2020 and things were better. So I figured I'd just use this as a mixing easel, so when I'm done, I'll throw it away. I do have a real paint easel. One, a little big to put here. Two, I don't see any reason to ruin it for such a small project because they get stained over time from your paints. So. But I'm going to continue doing some of the testing, and when I find it, I'll show you what I did. I wanted to show you how I did the silver smear. Then we give it to patina, the aged metal, and that this piece came off just by basically touching it. And then I darkened it up too to get rid of that tealish color. And I painted the bottom. So. The only thing I may not do is I may not do anything with this and the clown car that punches out of the top. Might leave those cleaner without doing any patina work to them or weathering techniques. Just so you have something bright against the back. Might change my mind. We'll find out. We'll find out together. So, but gonna continue. When I get to the next step where it's something dramatically different, I'll bring you back so you don't have to watch me do this arduous painting task. And then it'll be a reassembly where hopefully it reassembles. All right, started working on this one. I changed the purple wood and the purple down here to a reddish brown and a standard brown. How I did the reddish brown is I actually took some brown, mixed it with burnt umber, added a little bit of this, hell, I don't know what color it is, crimson, it says on the back, and then a dash of cadmium yellow. Mixed it, and that way it gives it a reddish appeal because of the crimson. Then for the bottom, which I'll let some of the purple come through purposely, I used everything here except for the red. So equal parts of this and a small drop of the yellow. That way it's a darker brown, lighter than just the brown itself, but it's darker and doesn't have the red tinge. Then I paint it on, semi-wet, and then I've been wiping it off. That way, again, it gives it that old wooden appearance. I might add some streaks of green, off greens, smear them in to look like mildew, especially since it's got green plants, you know, vines growing on different parts of the house, around the chimney or the smokestack, or on the roof, on the wall. So, I'm not sure how much of this is going to be seen, so I did darken it just to be safe, instead of leaving it the purple. I believe it covers it right here, but, you know, just to be safe, because I don't remember. So, make this bluish piece here all the way around, have the silver worn down appearance of metal. As far as this goes, I did change it a little bit. I actually took the brown, smeared it on, and then wiped it off so it would stick to the other paint. That way it still has the metal appearance, but it's dirty, dingy. It's got the black and brown streaks in it. And then I touched up around some of the fittings with that same paint and wiped it off, so it kind of looks a little dingier. It's not just black smeared paint to give it the dirty appearance. Now we got some dimension by adding a little bit of brown on some of the pipes where water may start causing corrosion or dirt buildup with mud from a rainstorm. So mixed up, and like I said, I'm doing it relatively dry. I'm letting the paint, I smear the paint out so it's relatively dry, and then I stick it on, blow on it, or give it about a half a minute, and I start wiping it off with the towel, like you saw me doing with the black. Be creative. Mix whatever colors you want on a white palette of some sort, paper, cardboard, old Dixie cups. and until you get the color you like, and then smear it on. As Bob Ross used to say, there are no mistakes, just happy accidents. Make it look good, as long as it looks good to you. I am self-hating when it comes to things like this because I always think I could do better. But that's just how I've always been, especially with all the stuff I build. I always think I can do better, and then that's what I strive for the next time I do it. So the next time I do a weathered building, I will try and do better, make it look better. Also, I took some of this brown and I added some here and wiped it off to give it another layer of dimension to this. So now it's not just silver with some of the original teal, or blue, not teal, but the blue-green showing through, and then the black smears. Now there's a little bit of brown, which gives it a little bit more dimension. So I'm probably going to take some more of this brown, smear it on this one, smear it on the edges here. Maybe a touch right here on this piece. Basically all the blue. The hard one's going to be the front fascia around here. Then I still got to figure out what to do with these really bright off-wood color wooden braces that they have on the doors and windows. I tried on this to add a little brown to it to see if it would help. And it did. I'm still not happy with it. It stuck better to this one than this one. So I'm going to play around, see what I can figure out. But I did notice, I didn't pay attention when I took it apart, is on these pulleys that have the little boxes of bones and skulls. One thing that they did do to keep it under tension, so as the belt stretches or shrinks, it doesn't get too tight or too loose, causing it to slip or bind, is they put a tensioning pulley on it, on both of them, matter of fact. So you can spin the little gear, which also allows when the square boxes go over, this goes back and forth a little bit. Keeps tension on the belt. Because these are belts, something I didn't bring up in the first disassembly video, if this sits for a long period of time without motion, especially if it's stored over the summer and it gets warm, this rubber belt will vulcanize, which means that it'll be in this position, you go to start it and it won't be able to turn because it's got these 3 bends in it. A lot of the magnetic front yard pieces that walked around the trick-or-treat one especially, the belt would vulcanize and then it would never work again. So just something to be aware of. I can't give you a fix for it or a preventative maintenance other than store it someplace that's climate controlled. My pieces are up all year round, so it's climate controlled by the fact that they're never back in their boxes. So, but yeah, both belts have the tensioner. So yeah, that's kind of nice. I know some people complain that these newer ones are cheaper, which I agree. It's a cheaper made product being plastic versus the ceramic and resin they used to be. And I'm not happy that they did this, but at the same token, for repairability and modification, it's going to be easier. Normally, you shouldn't have to disassemble this thing into 50 pieces. But you get an idea how much you can take apart, how to take it apart with a heat gun or heat pen. I don't know if a blow dryer would be hot enough to do anything. I don't know if it'd be hot enough to start breaking it. But I don't have enough hair to use a blow dryer. So, couldn't tell you. So, but I'm going to continue patinaing things. I pulled out basically acrylic paints versus the watercolor. Because like I said, I wasn't a big fan of the watercolor, so I used the acrylic and I started touching this up too, just to try it. The acrylic paints work better than the watercolor paints. And the silver and the metal piece that I'm making, I'm still using the testers, which is enamel. And they have a little bit of reaction, which I know if you're doing a nice model car would be bad, but on this, it not only gives it dimension, it gives it a little bit of texture. It's not as smooth. It feels pitted, not severely pitted, but you can feel It's not a smooth piece of plastic anymore because the two paints are reacting with each other, because I'm not painting them on dry, meaning one layer is dry before the next layer goes on. So, but I figured I'd give you another update. I continue playing around, seeing what I'm going to do with the front piece where the big gear is and the eyeballs. We already know we painted the eyeball and the bloodshot part. But I really want to try and find a nice color combination for the wood that covers all the windows and doors that looks good. And it'll probably be layers, probably layers of brown and then a little black to add the grain appearance. I might have to scuff it up, I'm not sure. I'm going to continue, and we're going to darken all this stuff so it's not that bright yellow. Got some grease on it when I took it apart. Paint's not going to stick to the grease. Of course, I'll make that silver and make it aged. This I might just, hit with the black just to give it the discoloration of age. Don't have to go super overboard. And a lot of the stuff I do, less is more. Meaning the less changes you do to it, the more it looks like you changed it. It's counterintuitive, but when you do custom cars, doing less things to the car, in some cases, makes it look better than if you do too much of a change to the car. And so it doesn't look gaudy. But I am happy with the brick. I am a lot happier with this one being discolored and the piping. I don't know if I'm going to do the streaks. I'm still going to test it and see if it works. If I don't like the way it looks, I'll just hit it black again. The rust streaks off of the pipe here, and probably that piece of pipe that's the original. This, I still got to darken that too. I'm going to put the chimney. Oh, yeah. Darken the chimney so it's not so bright red, and actually just painted the center black, because if you ever look down a chimney, they're not red. So, small little details like that is part of that less is more. Less modifications, except for the darkening the center, makes it look more realistic. So, I'm not going to do anything with the animals or the boxes on that front piece. I'm not going to do any modifications to the pumpkins, skulls, heads, etc. I'm not going to darken them. That way there's something brighter that stands out, brings your eye to it, especially since that's what you want to look at. It's the toy factory. It's making toys. The clown car, the same thing I was telling you. I darkened all the wood around it. I'm going to take care of this and this. With the car itself, I'll probably just leave the way it is, the clown. The only thing I might do is the bottom of the car is bright silver. Cars aren't bright silver underneath unless you're building a really custom show car. So I might darken this with the black paint. Not necessarily make it black, because then you'll lose the tires. The wheels will blend in and you won't notice them sticking out. But if I just take the shine off, we'll add depth. I might try and do a little bit on the grill. But other than that, that way, again, it adds depth, just the insides of the grill. I really don't want to change too much, because it is kind of nice having pops of color and a dark exterior. So, anyhow, we continue. Also, before I forget, this has all these rivets. Rivets are usually in steel, so I'm probably going to shine this up with some silver and then darken it. So again, it's metal, because this looks like a metal housing with a metal shelf. So, and then it's got a piece of wood here and a piece of wood there. So whatever I use to figure out these, I might touch up on these and that plank that came off the other side. So, it's not the most exciting thing, but there are a lot of people out there who enjoy this, like my friend who's a painter. This is his thing. I'm more hands-on destruction and recreation versus painting. So it's not as thrilling for me, but I do appreciate people who do it, because they have a talent that I'm not as good at. And This is, like I said, my first attempt at modifying any of my houses to a different color. So we'll see how it goes. I'll be back when some other major change is done. Then we'll start reassembly and see if it works. So until then, okay, I think I am relatively done with some of the weathering for now. So this concludes the second part of the video, which is modifying this for making the eyes glow and some weathering techniques, which was just basically darkening most of it. No matter what I did, I couldn't get the wood to do what I wanted. Again, not what I normally do for a living or for fun. But when I reassemble this, I might add a little bit more black to it and darken it like I did with this one and the edges of this one, just to give it that rotten look. But the eyes now glow with a black light, so I can put a little light off to the side. All the weathering is done, so it doesn't look like a plastic toy factory anymore. I think the walls came out pretty good. You can see the piping and the brick. Of course, you know, there's a window that goes there. The metal, to make it look like it's got metal beams holding the brick in, came out decently. Just the darkening of the brick and staining of the signs a little bit to give it aged appearance. It's been sitting. Even a little piece of pipe. Darken the wall. Might clean it up a little bit more once it's assembled, because there's stuff that covers a lot of this. At least it appears to with all the holes. I did darken the bottom, so it's still shiny. You can still see the reflection, but there is dark streaks, and I think the grill came out much better being backfilled. So I didn't want to change too much of it, but filling in the grill and darkening the bottom gives the tires a little bit more depth. Painting it all the way around. This part's covered, so I only did the metal appearance with the patina-ing on 3 sides. And here's the front fascia. The gears are stained, the walls are stained, everything's been darkened to give it that dingy appearance. I'll have to re-glue on all the light fixtures, or 2 of them at least. And the roof, which to me looked really fake. I stained the windows. Even the one in there. I added depth to the corrugated metal appearance and to the stack. So, because I mean, if this is rotten and decayed, nobody cleans these windows. So they're going to be nasty too. So, just very dry. It wasn't 100%, mostly dry brush. I take the brush and I dab it on a paper towel and then smear it on, let it sit for a moment, and then wipe it off. The windows I did a couple of times till I got a pattern I liked, which is still random, but then of course there's the original first piece we started with, where darkened to cobblestone to give it depth. And you can see the difference in color between the original plastic and the cobble. Of course, we got the white bottom, and the trash can, not so standout-ish with it being dirty and dingy, because I don't see people going outside cleaning trash cans that often. So the bears, I thought about darkening them. They're really porous, and was concerned if I got them too dark, they would look horrible. So I'm just going to leave them, just like I'm going to leave the items on the belts. And yeah, I'm going to leave this the way it is. I'm not going to do any darkening to it or any weathering to it. So I am going to leave this as it is. So that and these 2 belts and the 2 angry bears out front will remain the same with no modifications of paint or coloring. So part 3 would be reassembly and testing. Make sure it all works like it's supposed to. And if any pieces of the house is not covered once it's assembled, we can do some touch-up work while it's together. So assembly is going to be the hardest. Can't forget about the little window. So yeah, when I put it together, if there's enough room, maybe I'll put a little light in here, glue it up in here, drill it through the housing, maybe like a little dull green, just to make the window glow. Because, like Spooky Village just said, there's not enough light at this house. Maybe adding just a couple of small accent lights in some of the windows that are dark will help. Plus adding the black light to make those eyeballs glow is going to help a lot. So, until the next time, thanks for watching. We'll see you then. And part 3, assembly, testing, and some close-up video of it fully assembled, hopefully fully functional. So again, it'd be a waste of $100. And modified so it looks more rundown.